Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of our friends. Happy holidays. This is Brian Kozlowski, partner with Focus Consulting Group, and I am very pleased to be joined by my fellow partner, Liz Severance. Hello, Liz.
Hello.
I am very excited. We have made it to our final Hit It and Quit It for the 2023 year. And as we thought about a topic for this month, we thought it would be really effective if we took a retrospective look at 2023, some of the items that really resonated with our clients and things we were helping them with, and looking forward to 2024 and how they're going to play out and how we can play a role in helping with those. So we have three big topics this week to share, and they're not surprising, as for those who know us, they are very integrated, as you'll see. So very excited, Liz, to start with item number one.
Yeah. So big idea number one, for all of you who know that we like the rule of three here at Focus. This is our first big idea, which really isn't a big idea because I think people have realized, or at least a lot of our clients have realized, that the soft stuff is now the hard stuff. Things that people had taken advantage, took for granted in the past are now really coming to the forefront of what is making each firm really survive and strengthen throughout this time of change. We have seen so much change in 2024 or 2023 that I think it's just going to keep going in 2024. And, between the hybrid environment, people still struggling with that, a lot of M&As going on, a lot of leadership succession, which we're going to talk about, have been going on, that the quote unquote soft stuff, the things we have taken for granted, are really helping people. So, for instance, we're doing a lot of work on emotional intelligence. Warren Buffett has said that IQ gets you in the game and EQ gets you in the winner's circle. And we believe that strongly. And what we have seen is that those firms that are taking emotional intelligence seriously, making sure that not just technical skills of people that they are hiring, that are in their firms have, but also that they have those people skills. Because what we know is that, your biggest asset goes up and down the elevator every day. And so being able to relate to people, have those relationships is so important. So EQ, people who are focusing on that, and a lot of people who, have known Focus for a long time know that our tool of choice is the Enneagram. So we are doing a lot of work and really need to continue that work that firms are doing with shoring up those technical skills, but also focusing on those emotional intelligence skills. The other one is psychological safety. DEI is still continuing to be extremely important in some form or another to people. People really want to work in diverse organizations and that feel there's a sense of safety. So psychological safety has been a real big push and helping people to have those skills to create psychologically safe organizations where innovation can grow. And there's different thought that comes in that people feel a sense of inclusion so that they can be themselves. And we know that when people feel psychologically safe, that you're going to get more diversity and more equity in your organization. So really helping to focus on that psychological safety, really key going into 2024 as it has been in 2023. And then culture, right? People take that for granted, that culture is just something that is created. And we see a lot of cultures that are created by default and not by design. And we know, and the clients tell us, and the data supports that when you have strong cultures, it is a market differentiator. It is a competitive advantage, right? We used to take for granted that people were happy at work or they felt engaged. That is more important now than ever with all the change that is happening and the hybrid environment. really being able to focus on your culture, understanding what those rules of engagement are when you're dealing with people in office, out of office, all over the world. And so knowing what your culture is, being able to adapt to your culture and what is changing, that changing environment is going to be extremely important in 2024. And measuring, right? We got to know, what do you have that's really strong in your culture? What do you want to keep? What do you want to double down on? What are those values and behaviors that are going to help you continue to address change? Is going to be and is continuing to be extremely important. So measure that, find out the data, listen to what your people are saying. That is going to be how you create an emotionally intelligent organization, a one that is culturally and strong and thriving, and one that is psychologically safe. But the other one, before we move on to big idea number 2, is compensation. That used to just be a given, right? People took it for granted that if they threw money at people, that people would stay sticky. Brian, we know that's not the case. So what are we seeing with regards to compensation that now makes it a soft thing?
Yeah, and in fact, I'm gonna, that C word, compensation. Keith and I continue on this pathway to change compensation to rewards. And we're gaining folks on our journey, because when we think about rewarding individuals, it's much more than just the extrinsic, the dollars and cents. We know oftentimes that gets folks in the door, but what keeps them inside and in their seats are the intrinsic elements, the culture, like Liz was talking about. We're seeing a huge push on performance management. Folk, especially the younger generations, we want more feedback. We want to know not only how we're doing in our role, but we want to know where we're going. And the one reward we often, in our surveys, so in our own data, we hear the most feedback on is professional development. And the feedback being, we just don't get enough of it. Folks do not want to come into an organization and feel like a cog in the wheel. They want to understand how they're going to progress in their career and how you, as their employers, are going to help them on that journey. So when I started consulting with firms on compensation plans many years ago now, it really was all about the dollars and cents. It was trying to solve a problem mathematically. And the reality is now that's where it was maybe 80% of the equation in the past. I'll give it a little bit more credit and say it's 50-50, but I'm not sure it's even there. Because the reality is we're now seeing much more of an emphasis on how do we think about rewarding folks, especially in a year like this year, which has been challenging for a number of firms from a performance perspective. How do we keep folks engaged? How do we use our culture? How do we use feedback? How do we use development? How do we use appreciation? How do we use these different types of rewards, these intrinsic elements, the soft stuff, to keep folks engaged and motivated? So that's the other piece of this is there are other tools other than dollars and cents at your disposal that you can tap into to continue to motivate and grow your team. So that concludes big idea number 1. Big idea number 2, one of my favorites. Hope is not a strategy. I don't think it comes as a surprise to anyone on this call that this industry continues to see headwinds, continues to see changes. The reality is, how are we going to address them? How are we as a firm, in your case, how are we as an industry going to respond to them? And I continue to be surprised in conversations we have with clients that when I ask, do you have a strategy, a long-term strategy, I get a lot of blank stares. We have a plan, but it's more of an annual plan, which is fine. But a strategy gives you that long-term view. It gives you that opportunity to think about where you want to be in the next 3 years as an organization. How are you going to absorb all these moving parts and think about, okay, this is where we need to be as an organization and the things we need to do and the things we need to think about in order to get there. So we layer on top of, when we do strategy work, we layer on top your stakeholders, your clients, your employees, and your owners. We're having some interesting conversations on the client topic, because as we think of the active passive balance, and I don't know if there was an article this week in Fundfire about a report from Kellen showing some really positive news on the inactive side, and we're seeing a little bit of a change in the momentum there. But from a client perspective, how are we going? Who is the right client set for us today and tomorrow? Not who it has been, but who it will be. Where are we in the institutional landscape? Where are we on the wealth management landscape? Where are we in the endowment and foundation landscape? How do we differentiate our message to who we think our clients are? And how are we going to reach them? What's the right mode to get there? That has started some very interesting conversations. And it only happens by really popping the hood open and thinking about, all right, who are we? What do we represent? And how do we best serve different modules of the investment community for us to get there? So that's the C part. The employee part is, well, how are we going to craft that story and think most effectively about? So going back to rewards for a second, an effective rewards plan supports a firm's mission, its vision, its culture, which Liz talked about, and its strategy. So how are we going to get our team motivated by the strategy that we're putting forth? How are we going to get them excited to be shoulder to shoulder and moving forward to help us to grow? And that's part of being very clear about who we are and what we want to be. The last part bleeds into the second part of our big idea, which are the owners. And we have worked with several firms this year, and we continue to have a lot of conversations around succession. And succession is broken into two pieces. There's the financial part of it, which for firms that have internal equity, it's that transition from one generation to the next. But equally important on the financial piece is the talent piece. And the talent piece has to happen in order for the financial piece to happen. So one of the questions we often ask when we start succession is, what's your plan? Do you want to be a ongoing entity past the next generation? And oftentimes we hear, yes, we do. But that's incumbent upon the fact that you have the right people in the organization to take the helm and take the firm to where it wants to get to execute on the strategy that you're building. The reality is a lot of firms think about this in a compressed time period. You'll have founders who start to think about retirement, who start to think about monetizing their equity piece, but they decouple that from, do I have the right people? Do we have the right people to take us to the next generation? That time period, in our estimate, is 10 years, is an effective time period to get from start to finish, because it allows you to develop your talent. It allows you to have the right people in the seats in order to take the firm and be an ongoing entity. The other piece of it is it allows folks to develop that wealth, if the idea is to sell equity, for them to be in a position to be able to buy it. So as we advance as an organization, that has to be part of your strategy. Is great. We know where we want to go with our clients. Great. We've galvanized our employees, but how are we going to keep the owners smiling? How are we going to think about organizing ourselves financially and from a human capital perspective to get to that next generation? So it'll be a very interesting year coming up, because my guess, our hypothesis is that we will continue to see that be a topic at the very forefront of many of your agendas, and thinking through what it means for you as you think through being an ongoing entity. This is a nice segue into our third big idea.
Yeah, super talented individual contributors don't equal super talented leaders. So we are seeing and continue to see a big gap in those individual contributors who are promoted and who are now sitting in leadership positions. One, with regards to what Brian was talking about with succession, meaning the leaders are now ready for succession and talking about succession, and they have not developed the individual contributors in those key areas in order to step into those shoes in a seamless way, right? We have a saying at Focus that succession should be a non-event. It's only a non-event if you prepare your individual contributors to become leaders. And we are seeing that because they're great technicians, because they're great salespeople, because they're great, portfolio managers, whatever their individual role is, that they're promoted because they do such a great job as individual contributors. So the firms that we are seeing that are taking this stuff really seriously are developing their people. They're developing their individual contributors who are now moving up, right? So that they are ready to take those leadership roles. They're developing individual contributors because what Brian was saying, development is a key intrinsic motivator. It is something that they want from the moment they step in your doors, up your elevators, in your screens of your Zoom windows. I don't care how they're stepping into your frame. They want to start being developed from the moment they start with your organization. So how are you doing that? Because again, that is an intrinsic motivator. Money is something, it is not everything anymore. So how are you looking at not just developing your leaders, but developing your individual contributors from the moment they step in to your organization, and not just the investment side? This is all roles, levels in the organization. Okay. We're just starting a program in 2024 that is targeted to your support people, your executive assistants, your people who support other people, because they are a key part of an organization and tend not to be developed. And so how do we develop them into becoming not just someone who is great at doing tasks that someone sets out for them, but becoming a strategic thought partner to the person they support? How do we get those skills that they become that confident so that the person they support can be the best that they can be? So every part of your organization is key when you're looking at development. And then leaders. We're doing a lot of work with developing manager level and leader level, those positions that were promoted without those skills. So organizations are taking that very seriously, and they are reaching out for how do you develop the people who are already in those seats. And what we know is that you can offer up a lot of different development opportunities for people in your organizations. But we also know that self-driven development isn't going as well as people want it to go. We're busy people, right? I had a master class subscription for years and can tell you how many times on one hand that I used it and just kept doing it because my intention was to learn and develop through that, but just didn't happen. And so providing opportunities for people within your organization in a more formalized way is going to make your talent sticky, and it's going to get you the best talent in the organization. It's going to address some of those issues that Brian was talking about with succession and strategy. And again, it's going to create a culture that people want to join and people stay at your organization.
Yeah, the one thing I'll add as you think through this, as you think towards 2024, just be intentional
Yeah.
about how you want to develop your leaders. Whatever it is, there are many tools at our disposal today to be able to do it, but be intentional and make it a priority. Don't make it an afterthought. Because without leadership, firms flounder, strategies don't get executed, successions don't happen, rewards plans fail, cultures fragment. It all drives off of leaders. So treat it with the importance that it needs.
And what's coming.
Thank you all for joining us on this fine Friday. Visit our website, focuscgroup.com, under our thoughts for tidbits and joys from us. You go to our YouTube for recordings of our hit and quit it's, of our vlogs. If you're not already part of our distribution list, shame on you. But to fix that, you can email Laura at lurkley@focuseegroup.com and get all of our fine academic information. And very exciting, coming soon, Liz referenced one of them. We have a couple of new offerings next year. Wisdom from Wall Street and Key Success Factors for Executive Assistants. So those two we're very excited about those. And a new podcast series. So get ready to tune in. Liz, thank you for being on here with me today.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone out there. Everyone at Focus, wish everyone a very happy holiday season, a very prosperous and healthy 2024. And we look forward to seeing you all in the new year for lots of good things from Focus. And we'll see you soon.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks.